A big thank you comes to you today from Dead Rabbit via Patreon for his long support of the channel. Sarkhan, Aflame, versus the Scorpion God, Toshiro, and partners Alena and Gilanra. A 2-lander with a Wayfarer's Baubles, decent, into a dragon that can get us some card advantage. I'm fine with this. First spell of the game is a Delighted Halfling from the Gruul player. Okay, we draw into a Blasphemous Act, so there's every chance that we draw into an untapped land next turn, meaning that we'll be able to crack the Wayfarer's Bauble if we play it now. If not, then we get into the Molten Tributary, and there's no harm done ultimately. We're just running out the Wayfarer's Bauble and hoping that no one destroys it, which I doubt they'd waste any spot removal on anyway. And now a Lightning Greaves going on to the Mana Dork, an Arcane Signet for the Rakdos player. And we're just hoping for an untapped land here. Alright, excellent. So that means that we don't have to miss a turn now. Don't think anyone's going to play around our counter magic, so we'll just crack the Wayfarer's Bauble now. And now we see an uncounterable Gilanra coming down thanks to the Mana Dork there, and Lightning Greaves goes on there straight away. Still no spells from Toshiro, just seen a Profane Tutor suspended. And the Rakdos player passing priority, so yeah, it might be that he's holding up some kind of removal for our commander. So in that case, do we play our commander or do we just set up with the Urza's Incubator? Yeah, I think going for the Incubator should be fine here. Okay, and the removal comes from elsewhere. A Kogla and Yadaro. So Urza's Incubator going down straight away. And still nothing from the Mono Black player, just waiting for the Profane Tutor to tick down. And the Rakdos player continuing to struggle on mana, so 3 Rakdos mana not enough for this player apparently. Alright, we managed to make a 5th land by turn 4. So I think we just drop the land and go for our commander here. And then holding up double blue might dissuade our opponents from playing any big flashy spells. They might be scared of counter magic. And the first big spell that we see from the Drizella is Savage Ventmaw. And that is going to have haste, so they'll be able to make 6 mana out of that. And that is a Withering Boon, counter a target creature spell. Not one that you often see in black. They do still get to draw a card from the commander though. And now seeing a Vamp Tutor, so going to be 2 tutors in a row from the Toshiro. Okay, but this does, yeah, our opponent didn't think that through. This does go during the upkeep, so if they want to tutor with the Profane Tutor, then they'll shuffle their library after doing that, which means the Vampiric Tutor is pretty useless to them. At least our opponent gets a draw this way with the Profane Tutor. And there is a Twilight Prophet, that's a good one. They're nowhere near the Ascend though. And once again, the Scorpion God missing a land. Could always point spot removal at our Hellkite Tyrant, which I think we're going to be casting here. Alright, that might change things. I was looking to steal away the Lightning Greaves, but if we've got access to Swiftfoot Boots, maybe not. Yeah, I think maybe trying to draw into a land with this would be a good idea. So we'll throw out the Imrith and hopefully Sarkhan is going to be able to become a copy of it. Scorpion God is holding up priority here, so could go after Sarkhan. The Imrith is allowed to enter and therefore trigger the Sarkhan. We'll say yes and have it become a copy. So this is obviously a Sarkhan Solar Flame, so doesn't die to the legendary rule. These are 2 differently named cards. And because our commander's been in play for a few turns now, it does not have Summoning Sickness. So I'll show the other 2 players who I'm worried about here. Argument to be made for me still going for the Hellkite Tyrant to take haste away from this player. But I think this is the type of card that players are going to be scared of and therefore use their removal on. And like I said, this way we'll get closer to lands hopefully. So that hits, we just draw the 1 card from our commander. Alright, excellent, and that does get us into an island, so can continue to hold up the double blue to try and show our opponents that we've got counter magic held up, although I don't think our opponents are really playing around it, so let's go for the Swiftfoot Boots. Don't have the Ward 4 on our commander anymore, unfortunately. But Swiftfoot Boots next turn should be able to help with that. So Vala into play this time will not add too much mana until they get more big creatures down. Can use that to make some red mana though, which they are doing. And now deciding to untap mana. It might be that they were looking to get Alena down there, but might be thinking against it now. Alright, yeah, changing their mind and getting down a Sarith instead. And there's every chance that we'll be able to draw a card or 2 with the Selvala over the course of the game. And then we see the spot removal that we've been waiting for terminate, going on to the Sarith. And that is in response to the Lightning Greaves trying to equip over there. Tamiyo's safekeeping was being held up though to give it indestructible, so managing to throw the Lightning Greaves over here. 3 cards away from becoming ascended over here, but with 5 cards in hand and 6 mana, once again the mono black player just passing through the turn. Ugh, and there is a Toxic Deluge. The removal continues from the Scorpion God. Definitely relevant in the game, even though he's got a lack of mana. We can at least replay the Sarkhan next turn and put the Swiftfoot Boots onto it. Just need to hope that we dodge removal from the Toshiro. Okay, Bloodstained Maya for us means that we can go for the Hellkite Tyrant and steal away the Lightning Greaves. So yeah, let's go Bloodstained Maya, and we'll shock down a Steam Vents, and then we'll just hope that no one points any removal at the Tyrant. Alright, doesn't look like Toshiro is holding up any removal, not any removal he wants to use on us anyway, so that's worth bearing in mind. Steal the Lightning Greaves away from the Gruul player. Yeah, it's a shame to lose the blue dragon here, because I was hoping that we were going to draw more cards off that over the course of the game. Anyway, we do take control of the Lightning Greaves. Could have equipped it to the Hellkite Tyrant for a bit of added protection, but I was really just trying to take haste away from my opponent here. I'm seeing Alena, Kessig Trapper for the first time, so dodging the command attacks on that. And then losing the Lightning Greaves did slow them down here, because I think this counts towards itself. Yeah, so they would have been able to add 4 black mana with this. Anyway, seeing more removal from the black players, we are forced to sacrifice to tribute to hunger. We got a Lightning Greaves out of the deal at least. Toshiro getting some ramp down in the form of Caged Sun. And there's a Grasp of Darkness to finish off the Alena, so hopefully this player's running low enough on cards to not keep removing everything, because there's hardly any permanents sticking on the board here. Okay, and that's enough to have that player scoop. Turn 7 and the board hasn't really progressed any other than dropping lands, so can't really blame that player, to be honest. So obviously he took his Lightning Greaves with him, and Scorpion God just passing straight through the turn again. A Polluted Delta, we're just going for our commander here, I think. And then we'll play and crack the Polluted Delta for an island. If they can respond to the equip on the Swiftfoot Boots, then they can respond to the Polluted Delta being cracked as well. So protect the Sarkhan and pray that we draw into a relevant dragon. Might as well deal some commander damage to the Toshiro. Never know when commander damage is going to be relevant when you're buffing your commander up so much. So now with 2 cards in hand, time to see how much damage Toshiro can do with all this extra mana. Toshiro Umezawa hitting play for the first time. Well, still no land from this player. Very curious to see how many lands he's got in the deck there. Alright, and what we're getting here? Yeah, just another land unfortunately, so we are continuing to set up with a Rising of the Day, I think. Might be that one of our opponents gets into a decent creature that we can make a bunch of copies with. Obviously we'd rather do this with dragons, but take any good creature I can get at this point. Right, so not much point swinging in at Toshiro. It will become a 4-4 when it blocks and kill off our commander, so we'll just deal 3 commander damage over to the right this time. Alright, some Simulacrum even would be tempting with a Rite of Replication. We've got a decent amount of mana now, but when these get wiped out, it'll probably be to some form of destruction, like a Damnation or a Toxic Deluge, so we would draw cards with a Solemn. It would potentially dissuade players from swinging in at us as well. If we don't draw into anything next turn, I might just copy that thing. That's unfortunate. A Dreadbore on the Solemn Simulacrum. It seems as though our opponent's just desperate to play anything that's in his hand. So handing a card draw over to the Toshiro. So we're back to hoping for a dragon off the top. A Machine God's Effigy. Copy of any creature on the battlefield except it's an artifact. Not really much use to us when we don't have any other creatures to copy, so this is on entry, isn't it? Yeah, it enters the battlefield as a copy, so yeah, just passing the turn again. We'll take Sarkhan into the right again, because I imagine the Rakdos player is going to hold up removal for our stuff regardless. He will be scared of a random dragon coming down out of nowhere. Could have grabbed back the Imrith with the Haven of the Spirit Dragon, but it's legendary and we can't make a bunch of copies of it, or any copies of it, so yeah, maybe I'll do it at the end of my opponent's turn here. It depends. 9 mana, 18 mana held up, 4 cards in hand. I don't know what my opponents are drawing here, but this is a very weird game. It seems as though they want to be very reactionary. When no one's doing anything, they in turn can't do anything themselves. Okay, well, it's turn 10 and this is the worst luck I've seen a player have with lands. Well, he's had plenty of time, so I'm probably just going to go for the Hellkite Tyrant and steal away this Arcane Signet, see if we can get him to scoop. Okay, there's a Balefire Dragon, so as soon as we grab the Hellkite, we managed to get into another dragon. I think I still want rid of this player if he's going to keep getting into removal, so let's go for the Hellkite Tyrant still. Sarkhan has hexproof, so there's not a whole lot our opponents are going to do about this becoming a copy of the Hellkite Tyrant. And there's a cast down. We assume that this is just removal tribal from our opponent, so not really worried about losing that. They can cast an instant from their graveyard because they killed off one of our creatures, so there's Tribute to Hunger, forgot about that, so apparently there is something they can do about it. If I was this player, I would have looked at where I was swinging in first. This is the type of thing that makes games last forever. If my opponent had allowed me to swing in over here, it might be that this player scoops to losing his Arcane Signet and then it could have been a one-on-one. But instead, my opponent's decided to keep this player in it, which might be purposeful. Maybe he needs this guy's help, he feels. Anyway, losing our commander again. And then Toshiro going to trigger again because our commander does count as dying. So pointing at the Vamp Tutor this time. Our opponent's really eager to drag the game out because he refuses to swing in with Toshiro as well. Well, it took till turn 11, but our opponents finally got into another land, so now we see a Thran Dynamo really accelerating ahead on mana. Well, now we start getting into the dragons while we're facing down Toshiro Umezawa. Hasn't drawn into the card he tutored for yet, at least. So maybe we go for the Balefire Dragon and try and take their Toshiro away. So now in response to that, Toshiro Umezawa going to tap down a bunch of mana. And that is a Moonlight Bargain. Looking at the top 5 cards, so he's going to fill up his hand here, I imagine. Still north of his starting life total, thanks to all the removal. So they've drawn into the card they tutored for now, and now we see a Succumb Temptation, 6 cards in hand, about to go up to 8, so you would assume they have some kind of removal in all that. We do have haste already, but I'll put the Swiftfoot Boots on the dragon as well, force them to use the removal now. Okay, probably have an Edict effect because they allowed that to gain hexproof here. So let's go in against the mono black player, see what he can do. He's going to lose his commander here if he allows the dragon to hit. Yep, so sudden spoiling. That means that it loses flying, so they can block with the Toshiro. And then they can get another instant from their graveyard. So choosing the Moonlight Bargain. And casting that with 1 mana floating, so yeah, they're going to start the turn with a hell of a lot of cards in hand. Unless they decide to get some cards into their graveyard ready to cast them with their commander. Just taking 1 card from that. So there's a Jeweled Lotus, couple of lands, and a Hero's Downfall. A Cryptghast for even more mana, followed by our Armillary Sphere. Then cracking the sphere in order to get a couple of lands. Playing a land and then going down to 7 in hand, that is a Dark Bargain. Look at the top 3 cards, 2 of them into hand, and the others into the graveyard. And it's an Entomb that they threw in the bin. Hoping our opponent sets up some kind of combo soon. This is taking forever. Finally swinging in with the Toshiro. Another 7 turns and he should have us done on commander damage. That's 2 lands in a row from our opponent. A Verdant Catacombs played and cracked now. So now seeing the Scorpion God might be able to get rid of this thing and stop it from abusing all the instants and sorceries. Alright, drawing into a rapid hybridization this time. So do we just go after their commander with that? I think that's fine. In response, a Scorpion God puts a minus counter on that. So that will draw the Scorpion God a card here. Noteworthy that a Darkness has hit the bin as well. Seen some more obscure black spells this game. So we'll see if our opponent wants to destroy our commander again. We won't have hexproof on our commander, but they can destroy it in response to the equip anyway, so I'll just run the commander out. This is very similar to a game that I played recently where it was just counter magic tribal. We were playing against someone who just countered absolutely everything. Now, it doesn't make for a particularly fun game to play, but I'm not sure if it's fun for the viewers, so you'll have to let me know whether that's the case or not. Seeing a terrain generator now, we do know that they have another basic in hand. So Toshiro Umezawa into play once again. Now the Frog Lizard swinging in towards us, which reeks of bait, so we'll allow that through. A Necro Skitter now, which goes very well with the Scorpion God, so now whenever something with a minus counter on it dies, they'll gain control of it. I'm sure they'd like to take control of the Cryptghast over here. And we take a hit from the Scorpion God as well. Surely these players haven't run out of removal. They've both got full grips at this point. So at the end of the Rakdos player's turn, this player was tapping down some mana there, not sure if he's going to commit to it. Yep, a cut down, but this time it's going on an opponent's creature, the Necro Skitter. So that's being given Undying, and we'll come back in with a plus counter on it, which will encourage Toshiro to use some more removal. The cut down will still destroy it at least, so they'll still get a trigger with the Toshiro. And yep, Snuff Out going on to the Sarkhan. They could have done that the whole while in response to a Swiftfoot Boots, so don't feel bad about not equipping that. And Splendid Agony going to put a couple of minus counters onto the Cryptghast. I'm actually putting one on the Cryptghast and one onto our commander. So that means that our commander dies with a minus counter on it, drawing them a card with the Scorpion God. And because our commander died, like I said, they can get another spell, and that is Grasp of Darkness this time. Alright, pointing that at the Necro Skitter. So just not allowing the Undying Evil to work at all, but it does switch off their own cut down as well. Either way, they'll get another trigger with the Toshiro. So this time seeing Hero's Downfall, and that does of course target the Scorpion God here. I think they paid into the extort cost on the Cryptghast. So when the Scorpion God dies, they'll return it to the owner's hand at the beginning of the next end step. And Toshiro this time going after a Succumb to Temptation. So they're still going to have 7 cards in hand. And yeah, Cryptghast being paid into again, so they go north of their starting life total again. And it's round to our turn. Okay, there is a Cursed Mirror. Still with all these copy effects, haven't had anything all that decent to copy, unfortunately. Just going to go for the Blasphemous Act here, giving them poor hope of having a decent game. So Terrain Generator in response will get another land into play, and then successfully blowing everything up. Our opponent has 6 cards in hand, will obviously start with 7 at the beginning of the turn. Another tutor from the black player, a Demonic tutor this time. And there's an Arcane Lighthouse to remove Hexproof and Shroud, and Toshiro into play again. And then just continuing to hold up the 6 cards and a hell of a lot of mana into the Scorpion God player's turn, making another land as if by magic. Our opponent suddenly got into all the lands. So Scorpion God back into play again. And there's a Withering Boon here as well. So both the black players running Withering Boon. Okay, there we see a Rivendell now, so yeah, I'm just waiting for players to actually get a decent creature in play, really. So I think if we go Machine God's Effigy here, we can be triggering our copy of Toshiro when it goes after the Scorpion God stuff, and that might allow us into relevant stuff like Rapid Hybridization. Yeah, we'll just go for that now because we're not doing anything else. Also accelerates our mana a little bit as well. So Rivendell comes into play tapped, and yeah, we just pass there. Sedgemoor Witch, and the Toshiro going in at the Scorpion God. So if we can get a bunch of copies of the Sedgemoor Witch, and then cast something like the Rapid Hybridization into it, we should get a bunch of pests, and that should make for some decent blockers. Really clutching at straws here against my opponent. I mean, anything that we try and copy with this thing, the mono black player can just destroy it in response, but getting him to destroy his own stuff might be good. Scorpion God into play again. Alright, so we make it another turn round the table, and into a Fierce Guardianship, which we'll likely have to hard cast. So let's go for the Rite of Replication onto the Sedgemoor Witch. And we will have to pay the 3 life on the ward here. Alright, and managed to get into those, so all these do have haste, thanks to the Rising of the Day. So could swing in over here. I mean, he's still at 38 life, so don't think I'm that bothered. I just want to hold these back, to be honest, and hold back the mana for the Volcanic Island as well. Also not convinced that the Scorpion God won't swing in towards us. Terrain Generator puts in another land, down to 3 cards in hand by the end of our turn. A Sangromancer, I would rather have copied that one. And now an Eyeblight's ending, so that's going on to the Scorpion God. Triggers the Sedgemoor Witch, and this will allow us to go for the Rapid Hybridization. As we can see here, the Scorpion God going to go back to hand. Sangromancer will gain them 3 life. Toshiro is going to allow them to cast something, but our Toshiro over here is triggering as well. So they're going after the Dark Bargain in order to try and keep cards in their hand. They're down to 2 at the moment. So let's go after their commander and pay the blue for it. And in doing so, we will hopefully destroy their commander, but we get a bunch of Sedgemoor Witch pests as well. So successfully managing to blow up the commander. And then casting the Dark Bargain for another pest and some card advantage. And with that, throwing a Greed into the bin. Then we see Chainer, Dementia Master. Obviously they've still got a hell of a lot of black mana available, so should be able to reanimate things quite easily. The Scorpion God is in the bin, so they could steal that away. And that's exactly what they're doing. They could steal away the Hellkite Tyrant as well, and that would get them into 2 copies of Toshiro. And yep, that's what they're doing, going after the Tyrant. I'm sure a Balefire Dragon would be useful to them as well to wipe out our army. We're making them tap down a lot of black mana at least. So now if the Chainer can be removed, then all the Nightmares will be exiled at least. And then reanimating another creature. That is the Necro Skitter. This is where it would be useful to have the Chromatic Lantern. Everyone underrates that card because they think it's just for colour fixing, but it can be very useful when you get into cards like the Scorpion God. You'll be able to generate red mana in a mono black deck. Going to be 8 cards in the hand of the Rakdos player here, so I'm hoping that he'll be able to get rid of this thing. Yep, Bedevil going on to the Chainer. So then Chainer's ability goes on the stack and exiles all these creatures. And then it's Army in a Can. One of my favourite cards of all time, the Grave Titan. Why is it as soon as we cast the Rite of Replication, that's when our opponents get down all these incredible creatures? Okay, so this time we draw into Sarkhan Fireblood, which might be useful to get down now. We can create 4 dragons. Yeah, we're never going to get that ability off though. The loyalty when it comes in will be 4, and it's a -7. Our commander costs 9 at the moment, which means we can play our commander in a Swiftfoot Boots. Or we could just go for the Sarkhan into the Utvara Hellkite and pray that we get into more dragons. We could make the Utvara Hellkite copy with the Cursed Mirror next turn as well. Yeah, I don't think our commander's all that relevant at this point, to be honest. So let's drop ourselves the Sarkhan. Does mean that we're not going to be able to hold up Fierce Guardianship, unfortunately, but really just treading water at this point, in all honesty. So the plus ability adds 2 mana, and that mana can only be cast on dragon spells, so then in for the Utvara Hellkite, and we've worked it out that we will be able to put the Swiftfoot Boots over there. Not necessarily relevant with the Arcane Lighthouse, but we are going to make them tap a couple of lands into this at least. So let's see if we can encourage them to block with that Sangromancer. We get a 6/6 dragon with the Utvara Hellkite. No dragon ETBs unfortunately, but the more flyers we get going the better. And it could be relevant as well if we get our commander into play next turn, then swing in with a dragon. If Utvara Hellkite's in play, we could make our Sarkhan a copy of a dragon token, turn it into a 6/6 flyer. So we'd be swinging in with the 2/4, but it would turn into a 6/6 during combat in that case. Anyway, we'll pass at that and see if anything actually happens here. Alright, Midgame Mutilate, so maybe should have got down our commander. Our opponent deciding to wipe the board. Don't have an instant that we can play from the bin with our Umezawa over here, but with the Fierce Guardianship in the graveyard, we might be able to make use of that. They did do that without their commander in play at least, so yeah, Sangromancer gaining them a whole bunch of life, as do the pests for both myself and the mono-black player. Like I said, Toshiro doesn't have any legal targets. The commander in play again. I'd love to get into removal for that Caged Sun because it might be that they couldn't afford to recast it. They're down to 1 card in hand at least. Another commander being cast again. The Scorpion God's the only one with a full grip. Okay, an Ancient Tomb. I don't think we particularly need, so I'm going to go for the Rummage. And that draws us into Dragonlord's Servant, which is no good. We'd actually like to get into some dragons. So I think we just need to get down our commander here, really. And we can hold up the Fierce Guardianship. And we can use the Dragonlord's Servant as a Rummage effect, assuming that the Scorpion God doesn't swing into it, which it probably will. Swiftfoot Boots onto the Sarkhan. A Price of Fame going onto the Scorpion God. Do we allow that? What are they going to get? There's a Mutilate, but we could counter it. We can counter pretty much anything that they grab here, to be honest. And Tomb. They snuff out they could go for, thanks to the Arcane Lighthouse. Yeah, I think we let them blow up the Scorpion God because it could protect the Sarkhan from getting destroyed by the Scorpion God. So Toshiro going to trigger, as will ours. And yeah, they're activating the Arcane Lighthouse, so they're targeting the Price of Fame again. They did surveil some things. There's an Auric Law Mage and a Vona's Hunger. So surprised they didn't go for the Vona's Hunger there. It's probably the surveil that they're after, really. Well, if they've got another destruction spell in hand, we'll force them to use it. So there's the Price of Fame. And here is our Fierce Guardianship for free, thanks to having control of our commander. Do have to worry about the Edict effect here, though. Although not as much while our opponent does have this land. Toshiro swings in towards the Sarkhan, will not kill it, so we're fine to not lose our commander here. Noteworthy that our opponent is at 66 life, thanks to all the life gains, so yeah, it would be good to make our Sarkhan into something big and relevant. Not that we'll keep it in play for much longer. Scorpion God in play again. And then Fallen Ferromancer, 1-1 Infector, which can deal 1 damage to any target, so that's pretty much going to be for the minus counter. It's effectively a Wither card, I imagine. It's a shame no one's played an Urborg yet, otherwise we could have made a copy of Scorpion God and activated it a bunch. Okay, there is a stunt double, which is only useful if we manage to actually get into dragons. So we will go for the Rummage on the Dragon Lord Servant again. Maybe should have gone for the Scry on the Rivendell first. Oh well. Okay, and that is an Orb of Dragon Kind, so we could get a dragon with that. So let's sacrifice it straight away. We've got 4, 5, 6, 7 mana. And there's a Niv Mizzet Parun, that's a really good one. We've got just enough red mana to cast it as well. So definitely take that. And it ought to be really good against the mono black player as well. So I'll try and land some extra commander damage here. I actually care about keeping the Niv Mizzet Parun more than our commander at this point, so we'll move the Swiftfoot Boots over there. And it might be that the Scorpion God swings into us, so maybe hold back the Niv Mizzet Parun. It's just commander damage that we're thinking of against the mono black player at this point. Yeah, it could be that Sarkhan is actually relevant this game because it's letting us see more cards. The Rummage is actually pretty good at this point, so yeah, I'll hold back Niv Mizzet Parun. So we're hoping Toshiro's in top deck mode now, 2 cards in hand at the beginning of the turn. Doesn't look like he had spot removal previously. Toshiro swinging in at the Sarkhan, so yeah, some means of buffing against the Niv Mizzet. It will turn into a 4-4. Maybe they can give it +1 and Death Touch or something like that. I don't think it's worth losing the Niv Mizzet Parun. This could be our ticket out of the game. It'll at least draw us some cards on the way out, most likely. Arcane Lighthouse going to keep our stuff from having hexproof, so that's in the hope that the Rakdos player can do something to Niv Mizzet. So putting a minus counter on it with this. And yeah, these two are working against me here, so we'll see what our opponent's got. And you are already dead. Destroy a target creature that was dealt damage this turn. Was it dealt damage? Ah yeah, 1 damage from Fallen Ferromancer, so we draw a card. Doubt we're going to get anything. We don't have much counter magic in the deck, it's just a Fierce Guardianship that we've got access to. We'll blow up that Infector, and then it's a minus counter going over to this thing, so yeah, that's in response to the Niv Mizzet. That just means that they'll draw a card to the Scorpion God. So once again we're playing into the Toshiro's hand. Not sure why the Rakdos player is so eager to help out Toshiro here. It should be us two versus him as opposed to them 2v us. That does mean that a creature died though, and we've got access to the Fierce Guardianship now. See if our opponents notice it, because that does mean that we'll be able to counter this thing. So maybe they can blow up the Sarkhan so that we can't actually cast it for free. Yeah, there's a Vona's Hunger that they're targeting. As usual, Niv Mizzet is pretty tough to get rid of sometimes. Scorpion God puts a minus counter on our commander as well, assuming that it's going to go down. So yeah, again, these two working together, and all the Scorpion God player's done is really playing to Toshiro's hand, because he's going to lose his own commander again. Alright, they decided not to cast the Vona's Hunger. They're saving it because they feel as though they'll need it apparently. So again, we will cast to the Toshiro an instant, and that can target the You Are Already Dead. So once again we'll draw another card. And that's 1 damage. I'm going to deal it over to this player. I think it might be finally time to take down the Rakdos player if he's going to play against us like this. I was hoping that it could be a 2-on-1, but it's a 2-on-1 in our direction. Drew into a Bonder's Enclave. There's a Winged Words as well, so hopefully we can cast that into our Niv-Mizzet Parun. I debated on between this and Sakashima. I like this because it has flash, but yeah, didn't account for a decent number of legendary creatures in the deck, so maybe should have made it Sakashima. Having 2 Niv-Mizzets would be excellent. And by some miracle, we seem to have had our Niv-Mizzet Parun survive here. The Scorpion God swinging in over at the black player. Seems to be quite an erratic player, this one. Alright, an Ancient Copper Dragon is excellent to see, so again, a damage over to the Rakdos player. We'll finally try and get rid of him. And let's drop the Bonder's Enclave. Play ourselves an Ancient Copper Dragon. Sarkhan will become a copy of that. Then we can go for the stunt double, I think, while we've got haste on all of our stuff. And that can be an Ancient Copper Dragon as well. And that 1 card you have in hand, is it removal? Yeah, there's every chance that the mono black player could interfere and try and keep the Rakdos player in it, but I'll just deal exact damage to this player anyway. And then it's just commander damage that we're worried about on this player, so yeah, that's a further 6, taking him to 14. Let's take the Niv-Mizzet to the right as well, just overcommit there. The Niv-Mizzet won't deal lethal if one of the Ancient Copper Dragons is removed, but it will knock him down to 1. Alright, so managing to knock him down to -5. The mono black player didn't interfere after all, so could have left the Niv-Mizzet Parun untapped, but I think it was worth the risk there. Ancient Copper Dragon triggers 3 times, so hopefully get a bunch of treasures here. It would be pretty unlucky if we didn't. That is 7 off the first one, and then a further 10, and then another 4, so 21 in total. So now let's go for the Winged Words. We will draw 3 cards here, 2 from the spell and 1 from the Niv. And whenever we draw cards, we are going to be able to deal a damage, so I'm going to send it over to the Toshiro, and hopefully we can get rid of that this turn. The Scavenger Grounds is really good against this player as well. So drawing into the 2 cards means that we get another 2 pings and definitely get rid of the commander. There is a Dragon's Fire as well, and we've got a dragon to reveal with it. The Goldspan Dragon, after you make a bunch of treasures, is excellent. So Toshiro dies, and they decide not to cast an instant, curiously. They've left Toshiro in the bin as well. At least we can blow it up again. And there we see a Thrilling Encore, so yep, they just get their commander straight back. That is 1 damage to our opponent. We draw another card. That is a Seagate Restoration, which will be very good next turn, assuming we keep our treasures. Don't see that there's much a mono black player is going to do against our treasures. So that's probably why they were quite aggressively swinging in previously, because they knew they could get their Toshiro back quite easily. We'll allow our opponent to keep his commander for now. We can always Dragon's Fire it at the end of our turn, but it would be good to keep cards in hand for the Seagate Restoration, really. Just need to hope that he top decks into a land here. And he did, he played out the land as well, so not even bluffing. Alright, and we get into Scoop, excellent. So he took it up to 20 turns and lost anyway, so if I never see this commander and this deck again, it'll be too soon. That was boring and hellish. So it's obviously up to you in your meta, but don't be that guy. I'm Tribalkai. Thank you for watching.